Good evening, Demon fans, and welcome to the Demonland podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me once again, my co-host, Great Viney. Good evening, Great Viney. How are you?
For the first time in quite a few weeks, I'm actually a little bit nervous, to be honest, Andy. So, just came today, the nerves, for the first time. So,
well, my nerves haven't kicked in. I'm still just a little bit worried about the whole ticket thing for next week. I'm guaranteed a grand final ticket, but I've got to not sleep in for 4 hours at some time tomorrow to miss out on registering. But we'll talk about that a bit later on. Also joining us tonight, my favourite guy to follow on Twitter at DemonBlog, a.k.a. Super Mikado on Demonland. Good evening. How are you?
Gentlemen, I'm good. I can't believe it's only been a few weeks since I was having a big old sook on air about the prospect of us missing the finals, and now this.
Yeah, well, I had a sook as well, I think, a week before you, so...
shows how quickly it can turn.
That's right, and I mean, I was at an all-time low at that stage in terms of my confidence of whether we could make the finals, and now I think I've flipped a whole 180 with that, and I'm like, quite confident. This week, not as much as I was the last 2 weeks, but the confidence levels are rising. But the team has been performing in such a way that has helped that confidence level.
Yeah, it's certainly an unusual feeling.
Well, part of the reason for my nerves, I was just watching AFL 360 before, and they had one of those straps along the bottom that said, changes coming to AFLX in 2019. And I thought to myself, you know, the AFL is trying to slip this one past the Melbourne Football Club while we're focused on preliminary final week. They know that we're the premiers. One of, was it 8 or 9 teams were premiers, I think, for that competition. So that also makes me very nervous because we are dominating the AFLX game. And I don't think they should be slipping these changes through while we're focused on other things.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if have we talked much about the changes that are on the cards for AFL in general, like the main game, because I'm not happy about it. I know Super Mikado, I know you're not by reading your Twitter. What do we think about that? Is it going to be a huge change to the way we watch footy?
I don't understand why we need the bigger goal square. What's the rationale for that? I haven't had that explained to me.
Super
or seen it anywhere.
I think it's just so instead of hoofing it to 60 metres and a sort of a small bracket of where you could kick it, it gives you the entire length of the ground where you could kick it. Whether that's actually necessary or not, I'm not entirely sure.
What for
especially
kickouts,
after the
you mean?
Sam Frost mortar job on Friday night. But I guess the idea is that instead of knowing if a guy runs left out of the goals and kicks it long, it's going to definitely go to this tiny pocket of the ground. Now the idea will be it could go into the middle, it could go out to the wing. I wouldn't say it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard because they managed to plant a few seeds of really stupid things, so it didn't seem so bad. But it just seems so unnecessary, and I hope that it just causes a complete shambles and brings the game to its knees.
Doesn't that mean that the kick out then effectively starts at 10 metres forward?
Yeah, so you just move everyone back a bit.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
I'm hoping that the very first person to take a kick out, and also I watched that trial game, think how much time is going to be wasted with people picking up the ball behind the goal, walking all the way down to the end, probably playing on anyway. But I hope the first person who gets a kick in just does a short one into the pocket and just totally negates that. And then it turns into a goal. It just goes bang, bang, bang and turns into a goal just to negate the whole thing. So, I think that's quite stupid and just amazing that they can... Well, of course they can get away with anything they want because they're a monopoly, but to say it's been properly tested and trialled when it was bunged on a couple of slop-fest VFL games between bottom-of-the-table sides. And I don't know if you guys saw the article during the week that actually sort of debunked some of the myths that the AFL pulled out and actually showed that it created less scoring opportunities in those games, which, again, it could have just been the fact that it was two rubbish teams playing each other, but it certainly didn't prove anything the other way, that it's going to be the next big thing in the big sport. But I'm hoping that we do the business in 2 weeks, win the last Premier.
Oh, we lost Super Mikado. If you can still hear us, we've lost your audio. So perhaps try and fix that up. The other main change is that 666 for the starting thing. So look, yep. I'm not totally against that. I've liked at times when we've done that. Have play the man off, the extra man off the half back, but that'll obviously stop that. But that I'm not as worried about.
My issue is that all this came about because there was a stretch of games towards the beginning of the year, or a stretch of rounds where there was, for the most part, really ordinary football and low scores and lots of congestion. And so everyone, the entire footy industry, got into a tiz about it, and there was a demand for changes. And then what we saw in the second half of the year was that the game sort of fixed itself up, and we saw a lot better games. We saw much higher scoring. We've seen it obviously from our own club being the top scoring team in the competition, being able to kick over 100 points most weeks. So I just question the need for it when it seems, if you watch the footy most weeks, it's pretty bloody good.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. And, the numbers for the finals have broken records. So I don't know. Are we trying to fix something that's not broken? I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah. I've just tried to call Super Mikado back.
Boys, have you got me there?
I've got you now. Yes, that's better.
I could obviously hear what you guys were talking about. And I think the problem this year wasn't so much the mid teams and the top teams. It was your Gold Coast and Carltons and Brisbane a couple of times that really dragged the average score to its knees because they just couldn't score in those games where they were way overmatched. So I guess the idea of this Frankenstein goal square is that at least when Gold Coast concedes a point, they don't just get the ball locked in their 50 for the next 45 minutes and able to get it out. But at the same time, once they concede a goal, then theoretically that's off the agenda. So if they can't score from forward of centre as well, I'm not sure the super goal square is going to help them too much. But I did actually hear a good theory during the week that the 666 will actually pay off in spades for us, with the animal contested ball midfield coming from Max kicking towards any combination of Wiedemann, McDonald, Hogan, even Max when he goes down there for a break, and the other teams won't be able to stick someone in front of them. So there could be an upside to it for us, but in general, I fail to see where that's going to help the overall scoring, because when Gold Coast, when the ball goes out of the middle and sits in the opposition 50, the starting positions aren't going to mean a thing for them. So no doubt it will extend to other stoppages before long.
Look, I think a lot of this is coming from the fixturing as well, particularly the Friday night games. There are a lot of dud Friday night games this year, I think, and the majority of people watching footy would probably be on those nights. And if you're going to put dud teams up on those nights, well, people are going to complain about the state of the game or turn off the TV, and that's why they're thinking they need rules change. Put the Ds on. That's my...
well, that's the mistake they made this year.
Yeah. Do you think there's any correlation that with that, putting on dud games is, causing people to perhaps say that the game's in trouble when you have to watch...
Well, the fact is that with the fixture, there end up being dud games.
Well, yes.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean they have to be scheduled, obviously, in the prime slots.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
You end up seeing some crappy football over the year if you're an honest watcher of the game.
No, but I'm talking about in the primetime spots, because that's where the most eyes are going to be on it. That's where the noise on Twitter is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, the Carlton was an issue this year again, wasn't it?
But also, like
the second or third consecutive year.
St Kilda were on a lot. Bulldogs were on a lot. All bottom six teams in the end. And look, there's going to be times they you can't forecast. Sometimes you might think St Kilda are on the rise, but there are some things you can't forecast. Adelaide sort of dropping off, but anyway.
Yeah. Look, you
could have forecast Carlton being rubbish.
Yes,
I think.
Yes.
Like St Kilda, I think you could make a case for them that they swung and missed on that one, but they certainly botched not putting us on more and not realising that Carlton were going to be completely pox again. And you've got your Friday night is roughly in a round where there's 9 games. I would say, tell me if I'm wrong, that's really the only time where there's one game that no games intersect across each other. Yeah. So you haven't even got that option. At least Saturday night, if you've got Foxtel, you get one dud game on the Channel 7 game. You can always flick over to whatever B-grade contest is on the other channel, and that could very well be a much better game. Whereas Friday just sits one out, and you just see, you see Carlton's on, and you just think, no, I'll be right. I've got no need to watch that.
But that's the night. That's the night people want to watch a blockbuster game. Yep. Saturday night, if you get a blockbuster, that's bonus. But most of the time, I'm not expecting it. And if I'm at home, I'll watch. But Friday night, people want a blockbuster, and I don't think it's even about. Well, Carlton have the most, one of the highest supporter rate, and I don't think they do anymore. Let's put them on
everyone else.
That's right, exactly. So, because I've heard a lot of people, non-Melbourne people, in the last few weeks, sort of getting on the Melbourne bandwagon, saying they really enjoy watching our style of play and watching us play. So, yeah, get the D's on, or at least teams that are competitive.
Look, I've got no doubt we'll get we'll get 3, perhaps 4 Friday night games next year. Then we'll have the 2. We'll have the Anzac Day and the QB on top of that. We're going to have at least half a dozen fixtures that are absolutely prime time, rolled gold money makers.
Yep, I agree. Well, we weren't even, that wasn't even a planned thing to talk about tonight, but I just thought we'll bring it up. If you would like to join us on the program tonight to discuss any of the topics that we talk about, you can give us a call on 039016 3666, or you can Skype us at Demonland31. If you're listening to the show live, you can join us in our chat room where you can ask us questions or post comments by heading over to demonland.com/podcast. If you're listening to this at your leisure via SoundCloud on demonland.com or via iTunes or an Android podcasting app, be sure to subscribe to the show to receive updates when a new show drops, and don't forget to leave us favourable reviews to help more people find us. You can follow us on social media, Facebook at facebook.com/Demonland31, on Twitter at Demonland, on Instagram at Demonland31, or on YouTube, just search for Demonland Podcast, and you can listen to some of the interviews that we've conducted with current and past players and coaches. Or if you just love talking about the D's 24/7 all year round, why not join up to Demonland.com and chat with all the other D's fans in this crazy website. It's completely free. Now, with all that out of the way, boys, we're into a preliminary final. Who's coming with me to Perth? Super Mikado, I know you are.
I will be there. I'm not sure I'll get out alive, but I'll certainly start in Perth.
So you told me you're sitting with the cheer squad?
Yes, so I'm right behind the goal, so there is every possible chance I'll be seen on TV acting like an absolute nuffy. I'm gonna bring back the wearing of a jumper at the footy for the last time, the first time in 5 years, and the last time in my life, presumably. But I'm just going to leave it up to the viewers to spot whether I go for the Phil Reid, the Steph Martin, or the Sam Blease.
Okay. Nice. You don't have a disco jumper to rock?
Sadly not. Knowing that until this week that I was a retired jumper wearer, having clearly declared that I was too old for that kind of thing, I've never invested in the disco jumper. I did almost get Reece Healy's Shanghai Showdown jumper in the auction they had recently, but pulled out at $110 when I thought this is just getting too ridiculous. So that would have been nice.
Was that jumper the dragon jumper?
Yes. In the number 50,
nice.
The high profile number 50. So, yeah, I'll be going I haven't decided yet, and I won't be revealing it. But if you see the 28, the 34, or the 17 going absolutely bunter and probably getting things thrown at by the locals, that will be me.
All right. So there's only about 3,000 of us going. For some reason, I thought there'd be more. I don't know why it was. Maybe I was just reading on Demonland. It seemed like a lot of people were coming, but maybe that was just
apparently on
tens
the
of
radio
us.
they said that's the most number of interstate ticket allocations that have ever been sold for a final.
Really? Interesting.
Yep.
Well,
I
that's
noticed
good
Jetstar's helpfully put another flight on this afternoon,
Today,
when 60,000 of 60,000 tickets have been sold. So well done to anyone who probably did insider trading through friends or something at Jetstar and just bought a ticket for the game and held off on the flights because they've made it out like bandits.
Do you think that was just a PR thing for them and they've just got the timing completely wrong?
Yep.
Absolutely.
It's like, we're good guys.
They'll get to that day and then they'll shuffle people off onto other flights and just kill off that flight and not even run it in the end. Someone should hold them to account to make sure that the plane that is listed on their website actually takes off. Well, I guess if it takes off, we're going to assume it's going to land, but that it actually operates as a flight and that they don't get away with just going out with the publicity stunt.
I was hoping that China Southern, our sponsor, was going to get on board and put a few plane loads of people over, but
via Guangzhou.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's probably cheaper doing it that way.
Well, people have been. Some people have booked through Singapore.
Yep, I've heard that.
When I was checking out flights, it was cheaper to go through Sydney than to go direct from Melbourne.
Bali, I've heard.
Sorry?
I've heard Bali was a through destination.
So it's a bit of a joke, really.
Someone said the flights from Cairns to Perth were like $300 or $400. So
I couldn't do that. I just for the time I couldn't do that. Any of these enormous deviations. I actually, when Melksham kicked the second goal with 2 or 3 minutes left, I just ripped out the phone and started doing it on the spot on my mobile at the MCG. So thank you to the people who actually have set up so you can get 4G in a crowded stadium at the MCG now, which never used to be possible till a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And a couple of Ticketek style false starts where the website dropped out on me. I got in very early and prices were probably $200, $300 more a couple of hours later and about $600 more the next morning. So didn't even know it was a 50-50 split on the tickets at that point. I just thought, bugger it, I'll do it and then I'll work out the rest later. And if worst comes to worst, I'll fly do an 8-hour round trip just to watch TV in another state. But all's well that ends well. I'm in. I didn't pay too much. I don't have to go via, Papua New Guinea or anything. I am flying Tiger, so
okay. Good luck.
Can't win them all. But I'm sure they'll look after us, even if we probably have to pay for the toilet.
So my wife, when she realised we were home and ho, she was watching at home. She's booked me a flight, which was great, and then tried to get accommodation. And at first was struggling a little bit and managed to get me somewhere. But yeah, then we checked a few, the hotels that I wanted originally, we checked on the Saturday night and there were plenty of rooms. So there must have been quite a few Hawks supporters that cancelled their bookings afterwards. So thank you, Hawthorn, once again.
I was surprised at how much there was on offer at a reasonable price. I didn't do that until probably the next morning, about 10 o'clock the next morning. And I just fired it into Trivago. Because I like their ads, and there was a lot of stuff in Perth for, let's be fair, I wasn't picking out of the Hyatt and the Hilton or anything, but at the lower but not completely rock bottom backpackers 52 people to a room level, there was still a lot of stuff where you could get one night for under $200. So I was actually surprised at that they obviously didn't have time to push the lever up and start rorting people like the airlines.
I'm surprised that the Eagles supporters didn't. You know how there was people saying, "Oh, let's buy just a seat so that Eagles supporters can't get their seats, even if you couldn't go over." I'm surprised the reverse wasn't done by Eagles people and book hotel rooms to stop us coming. A war of ticket buying and not using. Could have been nice.
That did make the front page of the West Australian today. They had, it said, whinging Vicks try to sabotage our final.
But that was all a joke. It was fake news, wasn't it? It wasn't actually true.
Neil Mitchell was trying to
flame the fire,
whip something up. But as many people pointed out on Demonland, Neil's not exactly the most up to date Melbourne supporter necessarily, and some questioned whether he might need to renew his own membership.
Yeah, well, it's nice when Neil gets on board about once every 5 years.
Yep.
I think there was the time Colin Sylvia rang him up to ask him to renew his membership and didn't know who John Howard was, and he mocked him on air for it. And then there was the time when we were completely crap, and he got Mike Brady to come in and write a reasonably emotional song about how we should just have a go. And that was about 5 years ago. And fortunately, when I was searching for that today, the only place where anyone ever put the lyrics was on a Demonland thread. So I was able to pull that up and have another look at it. And 5 years later, we're in a prelim, and it's, oh, hello, Neil. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
I'd like to assure you Western Australians listening that the views of that man do not necessarily represent the entire Melbourne fan base.
Exactly. But let's talk about the game. Another great performance, I thought. Second quarter, were you guys worried? They were peppering. I think we only made 4 inside 50 entries and we kicked 3 goals. Correct me if I'm wrong. But were you worried in the second quarter when they were sort of peppering away, but not being able to score?
They could have been a few goals in front had they kicked accurately. Some of those shots missed because they were sort of pressure shots from difficult positions, but they did also miss a couple of sitters. And then particularly, if you go to halftime and the Gunston miss, which was a pretty easy kick, it turned out to be game changing, really.
Yeah, I wasn't that concerned, only because they never did kick one. I think if they actually did, if one went through, I would have been more concerned. But because they just kept missing, I sort of my heart was in my mouth the whole time waiting for them to kick one, and they never did, even though we spent the last couple of minutes desperately trying to feed them the opportunity to kick one. It was pretty much like the second quarter last week, where the team that battered the door down got nothing, and the team that nicked a couple of the other way came out of it better. But the difference this time was we got 3 goals when Geelong got 2, and Hawthorn went 5 goals ahead at quarter time to start with. So, look, like I said, if I think they got 1, I would have tensed up. But the fact that they never actually broke through for 1, and we got to half time with still a lead, I came out of it pretty confident. Now, the last quarter, totally different story. When those goals were going through, I was my internal organs were shutting down. Yeah,
I was very worried. When they got to 12 points, my head went down. I thought, well, this is Cardinia Park all over again. We're going to get overrun, and they're not just going to beat us. They'll probably win by about 3 goals. But credit to the D's, and they don't give up, and they, we put the foot down and kicked a couple of goals, and it was amazing. There was so many moments in the game that I just love. Viney, that it was just, I think, just before 3/4 time, he's like weaving in and out, the strength to get through traffic, and kick to Brayshaw. That pass was just beautiful, and Brayshaw's mark, amazing in that situation, and then to kick a goal.
Just before we go through those glorious moments, and there were plenty of them, did anyone else think that we came out and looked a bit either tired or complacent at the start of the last quarter? Because I said to my brother a few minutes in, and this is before they got any goals, I said we look like we've just sort of dropped back a level or 2 levels even, and the effort and the intensity and the urgency was missing, I thought.
We had a couple of opportunities.
Once you concede a couple, the momentum's on, and then it becomes really hard to stop.
We had at least one opportunity where Vandenberg had the big flying swing right at the start in the first few seconds of the quarter, and I reckon we had one more after that. But I would agree, after that, there was just that dip that the Hawks kicked, that great goal, that real, if you want to go for the cliche, team-lifting goal, from outside 50, and they just caught us on the break for a few minutes, and I think we were very lucky that we got out of that centre clearance, and Melksham kicked that goal.
But even that first goal, they showed on one of the footy shows last night that came from Oliver just going to sleep for half a second. His player, I can't remember who it was, got away from him. And they, as you say, they had a real team lift to kick the quarter off.
And
I was already stressed at that one, let alone number 2, and then number 3 was like a total panic station.
But it wasn't just the way they were playing. They had the momentum, but they also had the umpires on a string, basically. I think they...
It was an incredible 5 minutes, wasn't it? Where the whistle just kept going and going and going.
And the one that might have been the third one where Brayshaw basically he got his head sat on, and he was still making sure his shoulders were still adjusted to his head on the ground when Burgoyne, fair enough to him, just took off and played on and just ran past him while he was half dead on the ground.
And that resulted in a goal, I think.
Yes, correct. And if we'd lost in the end, I think there would be people tearing the house down over that one.
So what do you think about that rule in general? I understand the whole sliding in rule, which it's there for, but if you're on the ground already and you grab the ball and then you get sat on, and he played that up, Burgoyne, 100%. That was an acting performance.
Ridiculous.
And then also the Lewis one as well, which was probably more there in terms of the rule that's there, but still the guy also did a bit of a theatrical performance as well. I can't remember who it was, which Hawthorn player it was, but that rule, what do you think? Does it have to be looked at? Does it have to go?
I just think that better? All of a sudden now we're protecting the knees at the expense of the head.
Yep.
So it needs to be rewritten because it was meant to tackle the sliding, as you say, but it's written as contact below the legs. So in a technical sense, you could argue that. I mean, I think the Brayshaw one was actually above the knees, but it needs to be rewritten so that it doesn't get those situations.
Well, who makes the contact though? That's the thing. Like Brayshaw basically blind turned around and dived on the ball without probably even knowing Burgoyne was there. So even if he did make forceful contact to the knees, why is that necessarily his fault when he didn't see the ball at the guy's legs and go through his legs to get it. He just happened to go for the ball and the legs were there.
And he was there first.
Could have very easily
anyway,
been a push in the back as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think the AFL wants to tell us about all the data they collected on all their rule changes. Now we all know the famous slide that broke the leg, but what's the history of the slide before that? There's one major incident that caused this rule to be brought in. I don't remember, and maybe it's ignorance of 15 at the other time, now 17 other clubs, but I don't remember another situation where someone did chop someone in half with a big slide or a knee that was, done by someone going in low. And it's not to say it didn't happen, but it certainly wasn't an epidemic that was across the league where people were just being kneecapped left, right and centre by slides and people going in low. So I'm not sure the problem was there that they were trying to solve. They were just knee-jerk reacting, surprise, surprise, at one particular incident.
And I understand the rule and why it was brought in, but every time I've seen them interpret that rule, and also in non-Melbourne games when I've got no dog in the fight, it's always seemed to me to be wrong and hasn't been an incident that would have caused any injury.
Exactly. It's how much contact do you need to trigger the rule? It's supposed to be forceful contact, but it seems to be any sort of contact, even if you run yourself into the player, you get pinged for it. So it definitely needs to be looked at, but certainly not being talked about being looked at. But I think it's one of those frustrations that irritates most fans.
Oh no, a lot of the footy shows have talked about it, and everyone's been as one saying it needs to be.
I'm just saying that they're not going to review it. Like, I think everyone seems to know that rule's broken, but it doesn't get talked about. Like today, they're talking about the hands in the back rule is finito next year.
Yeah. So what's that? I sort of saw that. What is that? Where
is that the marking? Is it?
So is that like
a full? You'll be able to put the hand on someone's back, and as long as you don't push them.
Okay, so you're allowed to touch the back.
All legal.
Okay. So that's the
which I think is actually quite a sensible change.
So is that a situation where, just say Jesse Hogan's behind his defender, he's allowed to have his hands in the back as long as it's not an outright push? The hands are allowed to sort of be placed there.
Yeah, effectively back to what it was 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay. All right, well, that makes sense. I thought they were going to allow people to push someone out. But I just read the headline, not the actual
As long as you could back as well and, really get some big shepherds in as well would be good.
Yeah.
Just make it a free-for-all. Forget there's too many interpretations. Let's just make it a Royal Rumble where people can do pretty much anything.
While we're talking about umpires, do we know the umpires that are going over to Perth? Is that later in the week? Usually comes out.
As long as it's not that bloody Matt Nichols.
Yeah.
Tell me, does he get kicked out of the finals along with his club, Hawthorn?
Yes,
or is he still part of the rotation?
Yeah, look, I don't know. Umpires, I don't like any of them. We'll talk individual performances. Viney, was that? Does he look like a guy who has been out for so long? Or I think we posed the same question last week, but put it up a notch.
Some of those sidesteps, though, as you say, his ability to work his way out of the traffic in that late in the third quarter, but on a couple of other occasions, he knows how to move his way around. So, performing on the big stage at the very highest of levels. I mean, he had 67% game time only, and yet finished with 27 touches, 17 contested, a bunch of tackles, clearances, and inside 50. So, if he'd played, sort of full game time, he would have been in the mid-30s or high 30s. So it's just outstanding from the skipper.
Well, it's great that we have the luxury with our sort of midfield that he can have 60%, 67% game time. It's just fantastic. And he had 5 tackles.
Yeah, and who would have ever thought that you'd be relaxed starting off a final with Jack Viney sitting on the bench and James Harmes in the starting midfield. And yet that's how we've lined up the last 2 weeks, and no one bats an eyelid because Harmes has just grown so much over the past couple of months.
Yeah, he has. I was just reading before his 11 tackles this week. He had 10 last week. He joins only a couple of players who have had consecutive finals with 10 tackles or more. And if he continues that and plays plays 2 more games, hopefully he'll break a record. So and gets those 10 tackles.
Apparently he's beaten the Melbourne record already for the most number of tackles in a final series.
I'm not surprised.
So yeah.
We'll talk about Harmes in a sec. I just want to go back to Viney, just about his sort of, that sidestepping and brute force. I think in one of the threads mentioned, that he gets caught sometimes, but I don't mind him getting caught occasionally if he's going to play the way he played on Friday.
It happened. Every midfielder gets caught every now and
Exactly.
then. It happens.
Yeah, you got to balance it against what they do bring, and in his case, he brings a hell of a lot.
I mean, some of his second and third efforts, like in the tackling stakes, are just incredible. His will to each contest is off the charts.
Harmes, back to him, fantastic. Couldn't have had a better 6 weeks. We've said it every the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. He's just getting better and better and better. And he's getting into, that sort of starting to get into that elite level. I'm not going to say it's because he's been on the Demonland podcast twice this year. But the results speak for themselves.
Well, Spartacus
yes.
backed up the theory on the weekend by having a pretty good game after appearing on his. So
Well, I'll talk about.
Got runs on the board.
That was his best game yet, Spargo.
Yeah. So he had 12 possessions, which when you look at that, it doesn't, it's 12 possessions, but he had, kicked 2 goals. He had 3 other score involvement, at least 3 or 4 direct score involvements. He handballed to T-Mac, he handballed to Nibbler. Just sort of does some hard stuff, hard running, and I'm wrapped with him. Everyone says he's cooked. People have been saying it, but if that's cooked, then, cook on.
Well, he's now 14 wins and 3 losses for his Melbourne career. So that's an unprecedented in the modern era start to a career. Compare, for instance, Jake Spencer, who I think was 0-16 at the start of his career, or 0-12 or something like that. To get a guy in who's 14-3 is quite remarkable.
It's interesting. I was thinking about those sorts of numbers today, actually, and this is the point where the Jordan Lewis recruitment is going to backfire on us. We've lauded his experience and what he can bring, but he's now one of the only players on the list that's played in a losing final. And I'm worried that, we spent all these years getting rid of our scarred players, and now we've got someone with a loser's mentality like Lewis, when the rest of our boys only know how to win.
Well,
we'll have to get Charlie to have a word with him.
Yeah. Well, Jonesy, doesn't he he's got a loss on his record as well.
Yeah, and I think Melksham too.
Yeah.
Well, Essendon hasn't won a final since about 2004, if we can mention that. So no doubt that those 2 boys have dropped one as well.
So who else? Oliver loved his chase down, and that was that in the last quarter as well. Yeah,
yep.
That was
last quarter.
Can't remember the guy who he chased down, but that was
Nash, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, you could see he was late in the game. He was tired, but he still just gave it that, just gave it his all and ran him down. It's just efforts like that are fantastic. Oliver had 8 tackles as well, so to go with his 22 possessions. What did you think of the vision of him going down? I mean, I think any reasonable person would getting pushed like that would fall over. There was a lot of controversy about that, but I think most people would have fallen in that situation. I don't think he dived. Thoughts on
he
that?
might not have committed his entire energy to staying upright, but it certainly wasn't a theatrical plummet to the ground. There was obvious impact there. If he'd tried with all his might, he might have wobbled a bit and held up. But when you catch someone by surprise, that's going to happen. They're going to knock them over. If it had happened the other way, we'd be decrying the Hawthorn player as a diving dog. So,
of course,
I can see where fans of other teams may differ on their opinion.
Well, I try to judge all free kicks with how I would be if it went the other way. Like even the ones like that we get these easy ones, free kicks in a goal square. Would I be filthy about it the other way? Anyone else really catch your eye?
Tommy McDonald was sensational again. And some of all of his marking is really strong. He continues to just kick accurately. I think he's kicked 53-20 for the year, 4 goals straight the other night. And Wiedemann, I thought, also had he was quieter than he was against Geelong, but showed again plenty of promise and had a few involvements and 1 goal, 2 goals.
I think
2.
2, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 2 goals.
I thought Hibberd was excellent in defence.
Yep.
And Jetta as well.
Yep.
I had a lot of apologies in the votes this week, so I couldn't fit Jetta in. But Petrarca as well. I thought that was one of his better games in recent times.
Yeah, I think it was one of his best that he's played for us. Without the scoreboard impact, as in like a game kicking 4 or 5 goals, but just the work rate that he did sort of up half forward line. Yep.
And I love that goal he kicked in the first quarter as well.
Yep.
Where he just ran straight through the middle and just smashed it home. That was a really well taken goal.
Just back on Nev, isn't it? It's not surprising that he's been involved in the 2 iconic moments of our 2 games: the tackle on Selwood and now the bump on Mitchell. And he was, as Super Mercado said, just sensational again the other night, having a ripping final series. It's interesting. People are now re-prosecuting the All-Australian argument and saying that he should have been picked. But as I think we've all agreed before, he had a better year last year and didn't make it last year. Yeah. And you can't re-prosecute the All-Australian after the final series.
No.
Even though
Sam Wiedemann would be in it.
2 great games.
Yeah.
Do you reckon Nev, given the fact that he's clobbered a couple of people perfectly legally, he's the $1 favourite for the if we win the will he or won't he get suspended controversy? Like he'll run into someone and there'll be like you can't miss a grand final because of that controversy, and then he'll be let off anyway because you can't miss a grand final for that. But I'd say he'd be $1 for the for that the way he's going at the moment.
Yep.
Yep. I loved that bump. It was just beautiful. I think Mitchell might have gone off after that for a little bit as well. So
he did. Yep.
Yeah, very nice. Wrapped with our back line at the moment. So keep it up. We've got a big challenge ahead of us for the back. So
well, I'm looking forward to Nev v Mark Lacroix round 2.
Yep.
After their minor disagreement at the Siren.
Oh yes.
A few weeks ago. Which we never got to. No, it wasn't what everyone thought it was going to be. Let's just say that. So I don't know what the reason was behind it, but now they get to have a rematch. So that could contribute further to Nev's chances of clattering somebody and potentially being rubbed out.
Nice. We'll look forward to that one.
How good was the crowd again?
Oh, yeah.
I don't, as I think I said last week, it shades of 87 about it, but the roar at certain times is as loud as I've ever heard at the footy. I think when they sort of, just after the Gunston goal, when we caused the turnover and Spartacus got the handball to Nibbler, I think when Nibbler got the ball and as he ran in, that's the loudest roar I have ever heard live, I think.
Well,
I expected more Hawthorn fans. After we had the overwhelming majority against Geelong, I was surprised that we had the absolute massive overwhelming majority again. And we're obviously going to pay for that this week by having the massive minority. I was so surprised that we still had the crowd numbers so spectacularly. And you're right, some of those goals, pretty much every goal after the Nibbler one and beyond was just absolutely, the atmosphere was just bonkers. Except the Charlie Spargo one, which the atmosphere was bonkers, but I only had to just look up from booking a flight on my phone. So I was sort of distracted at the time. But all the other ones, people just went absolutely bananas.
I must say I missed Spargo's last goal because I think my wife had texted me that she couldn't get me into the hotel, so I was panicking a little bit for a few minutes. But yeah, the crowd has been fantastic. Look, there were a lot more Hawthorn fans there than there were Geelong last week. I was actually shocked with Geelong's lack of support. In a final, but maybe that's because they've been so spoilt with finals, but so have Hawthorn, and they came out. But yeah, we had... What do you think the split was this week?
I thought it was about 60-40.
Yeah. So.
Where I was sitting, it was about 98-2, so maybe I got a poor representation of it. It was literally, when we kicked those goals at the end and about 3 or 4 of them got up to walk out, it was like, I didn't even know this guy was here to start with. So I guess that's where we're picking when you go through Ticketek and you'd said pick Melbourne allocation, that it's just stacked everyone in the same place.
Yeah.
Whereas if you had other tickets, AFL members or MCC or wherever, you might have been with other people or on the edge of a bay between Hawthorn and Melbourne fans. But where we were, it was just the complete all Melbourne all the time atmosphere.
I like that. This week you'll get a shock there because it's the loudest stadium I've ever been to, and they cheer and boo everything. So
hang on. The noise that you heard at Domain a month ago was louder than the noise from Friday night.
I think it's Optus Stadium, not Domain.
Isn't it? Which one's Domain?
Domain might have been the Subiaco might have been Domain Stadium,
yes,
but it is Optus.
There you go, Optus.
Optus Stadium. Well, if not, then I'm going to Optus Stadium.
Right.
I got tickets from a dud website.
Tickets to the wrong place.
It's not tickets.
Was it louder there than it was on Friday night?
Well, look, you can't. I don't think you can compare 90,000, still 90,000 people, but it was because we don't. And we don't get many 90,000 crowds. It was much louder than anything I'd experienced really at the G for the majority of our games. But having said that, maybe I've just forgotten what it's like to have over 80,000, considering the meagre crowds we've had in the last 10 years or so.
But the G is constructed in a way that helps the atmosphere. It's very, it's very vertical.
I think there's
sort of going back and out.
There's something about the acoustics in that stadium as well, and
yes,
we did it last time. I'd like to get off to a good start if we can, please, because try and get the crowd out of it. But then again, we kicked the first four last time, and sort of they came back, and it's that coming back. The crowd, like they would cheer. There'd be a roar that would go up. They'd kick a goal, and they'd get that roar and all that, but then the ball would come back to the middle, and before the ball was balled up, every time the crowd would cheer like they're cheering for the first ball up in a grand final. That's what it sounded like. They're very loud, and I said they boo everything. Like I like a boo, but they really you can have a head taken off, and they won't accept that.
I just realised we've got a problem.
What's that?
And you know that I'm quite a superstitious guy, Andy.
Yeah.
And I noticed that you paged Binman today in the podcast thread, and he didn't respond. He's not in the chat room tonight. If he doesn't call in, the game is over. Yeah, well,
we have changed the days on him, and that was I could do. I've got something on that I couldn't get out of tomorrow night, and I didn't want to do it Thursday night because it's already too far away from the game to sort of rehash it. So I'm hoping Binman, maybe call in now just so that we can get it over and done with. We need your call. Yes. Do you think there's anything to the Noise of Affirmation? And if you're not familiar with that term, that's the the home team. It's a couple of things. The home team getting the umpire's attention, basically, with their calling for ball. But I guess it's also the lack of that noise of affirmation for Melbourne. If we tackle and we don't have that shout of ball, getting the free kick for those situations. Do you think there's anything to that?
That's Alan Richardson was on TV talking about the second one that you're talking about, the noise of non-affirmation. So not getting the free kicks that you might otherwise. It was interesting that Goody or someone said that the last 2 weeks has almost felt like a home ground advantage for us, like an interstate advantage for us. So we've almost had the noise of affirmation with us for the last 2 weeks. So, look, I think it plays a factor. There's no doubt about it.
Well, historically, it certainly does. But I've got to remember, apart from that farcical decision against Aaron Vandenberg, we actually got some absolute rippers in the last game we played there. So I'm hoping that psychologically the umpires, without doing it deliberately, try and bring it back into the middle and possibly, tip it a bit in our favour, just to correct the historical
Exactly.
record.
Well, apparently Eagles this year, in the article I read, they've had an 80-plus differential in their favour, but the last few weeks it has not been like that. I got...
Long
It
may
says,
it rain.
Bin Man, trying to call you are not available.
Yeah, well, what I'm going to do, Bin Man, if you're listening, because I just saw I had a voice message from him, so even if we don't get him, maybe I can play the voice message and that'll do. But last week I just had to close down Skype and open it again, so I'll let you know once it's opened.
Ooh, thank God for that. I am a very superstitious person, and part of the reason I'm not going over to Perth is because I didn't go over a month ago with you, Andy.
Okay,
and
well...
I don't want to upset the balance this time. So...
Well, all right, Bin Man. It's come up that I had a missed call from him. Bin Man, it's restarted, so give us a call. We need. I am a little bit superstitious, but I'm trying to get over it. But great Viney, he's going to have a meltdown. So
I'll tell you why I'll have a meltdown. I had a meltdown on Friday night because I had to wear the same clothes I wore the previous week.
And they weren't washed.
And it was cold against Geelong, so I had a thermal on.
Yeah. Oh.
And unfortunately, I had to wear that against Hawthorn, and it was a warm night.
That's a rookie mistake.
I lost about 5 kilos in sweat.
I think we've got Bin Man calling in now. I will take the call. Bin Man, please, is that you?
Hello.
Oh, Bin Man.
Hooray!
You've saved.
Hey.
You've saved Great Viney some
Save
stress.
the D's.
Yes. Good evening. How are you?
Good, thanks. I'm feeling very pumped about the weekend. I could not have enjoyed that game on Friday night anymore if I'd set out to enjoy it more than I did.
So, first I'll ask you, are you going over to Perth?
I am indeed.
Oh, beautiful.
I wasn't going to, and I got a good mate of mine that I talked about last week, the Nervous Nelly Demon fan, and he's going, and he was trying to convince me, and I was just thinking the whole cost of everything. And I got home after the game, and they all went out, and I came home and had stuff to do on the weekend, and I jumped on the net and watched all the highlights I could and the press conference, and I thought, I just got to go. So I booked my Tiger Air flight. It jumped from 283 on the return ticket to 530 before my very eyes. But yeah, jumped on, bought it. He got the tickets yesterday, smack on the wing. So
where about?
Yeah, couldn't be more pumped.
What bay are you?
It's not. I think it's 145.
Okay.
Aisle 145.
I'm in the same one, Big Man. We might have to catch up.
Defend each other.
Absolutely.
We'll be. Everyone I know is either in 144, 145, or 146. I know quite a few guys going over. So I think those 3 bays at least, which is sort of wing half forward. That's going to be all Melbourne, I would say, and behind the goals as well.
Well, yeah, 105. We'll try and defend our turf until you 3 can get over to save us.
Do you know what row you're about in 145?
I do. It's row 22.
Okay, I'm 3, so all right, we'll have to.
You're right on the fence then.
Yeah. Which isn't too bad at that stadium because it is raised above. Like the front row is almost head height of a player on the boundary line, so you got a bit of height going into there. Because normally I would not want to sit row 3, but I'll take it at this stadium.
My friend, he likes to be up a bit higher and wanted level 1, but there was a malfunction on the computer and it wouldn't. Like they could see the tickets were there but couldn't get it, and so we're right at the back because he wanted as far back as possible. But it seems there's a virtual. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but on the West Coast website, there's a virtual stadium.
Okay.
So you can go to your seat and see what it looks like, and it's sort of under a slight overhang. So hopefully it's not a pillbox effect, but you're thinking a $1 billion stadium, they wouldn't have done that.
I'll let you know that side of the ground because when I went there, I sat on the exact opposite, sort of the diagonal opposite from that there, and I was like in the shade. But that side of the ground was bathed in sunshine, so sunscreen, hat, maybe sunglasses for that side of the ground.
And a full protective
25
bodysuit for
degrees.
Clayton Oliver.
Yeah, so if the sun's out, you'll be sweltering. So that's just a word to the wise. I'm going to look up this this West.
So
is it on the Eagles website?
It's called West Coast Virtual Venue.
All right, I'll have to look that up and have a look at my seat.
And they boo,
Don't know what
like
you do
you
if you're a
put it
friend.
on and they just start booing as soon as you go on to...
I wouldn't be
That's not true.
surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, any thoughts on that game? The game? Anything you saw that we haven't discussed or you want to bring up again?
Oh, look, I'm always about looking forward these days. So I think a couple of things I had thought. There was the thread on Demonland that David King, saying that
Yes.
we'll get flogged if we play like that. And I actually don't mind David King's analysis as a general rule, but I think he over-egged the pudding a bit on their how many uncontested marks they got. I mean, as I said last week, that was always going to be the critical sort of factor, is cutting out their uncontested. But if you look at it, even in that second quarter when they really did dominate, and really our defensive unit saved us, and Maxi getting back. A lot of their kicks was very crowded. We were flooding the back line, and they weren't really getting quick transitions. So you could see they were deliberately trying to stretch us. So they were going for sort of the cross-ground kicks that apparently they don't normally do. Normally I heard someone say during the week, tend to go more down the line. And, I think that you have to give up some of them. You can't cover everything. But they weren't that moving the ball that quickly. So I suspect it was partly a tactical thing to give them but not run ourselves into the ground. And so I think that was overplayed a bit, but certainly the numbers that were more concerning was contested ball was just about level at halftime, and they had 4 more inside 50s, which is super rare for Melbourne at the moment. So, but we were definitely playing deeper, so that might have had a factor. The other issue that was really noticeable, and I was surprised that no commentators seemed to discuss it, was there was a clear strategic change where they were kicking to about 40 metres out in the corridor in front of goals. And it was the cause of at least 4 or 5 turnovers. Spargo in the first quarter had Hannon on the inside on the boundary line and like to go into that spot and turned it over. Petraka did it a couple of times. Jones did it once, where exactly that scenario, kicking to that spot. But it's also the spot that Wiedemann kicked his goal from. Tom McDonald kicked 2 from there. Hannon kicked 1 from there. There were about 5 or 6 of our goals from about 30 metres out, directly in front. And it was a really noticeable tactical change. So, I thought that was quite interesting that they would try it in such a big game.
Yeah, we were a bit sloppy at times. We did make a few of those mistakes, but it didn't hurt us too badly.
Well, we had to create so many opportunities that some of them end up going through.
Yeah.
Although, as you say, the second quarter was sort of the reverse of that.
We were lucky that they had turnovers, some pretty poor turnovers as well.
Yes.
And obviously you worry about your own turnovers, but geez, they missed some very gettable shots and also missed some targets as well. So.
Anything else, Big Man?
Well, just the match going forward, I was pretty confident the Geelong game. I'm pretty confident about the Hawthorn game, a bit less so. And this game, I think, is a genuine 50-50 game. I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, in the odds that we're as short as we are. But, I guess that's a reflection of how well we're playing. You'd know, having been there previously, it's a pretty formidable ground to go to, obviously. But I think it's a bit of a cliche, but our game is built for finals. And, I think West Coast like to control the ball, but not quite the same way as Hawthorn. They look to attack it a little bit more and move it more quickly. And I think that sort of style suits us because they've got to be on, and that sort of system has to work under pressure, whereas our game style is built for it in the sense that there's always the pressure, and there's always, they just need to bring the intent. So you got to imagine they'll bring the intent, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things. If I'm a little bit nervous. I think if we were playing at the G, I'd be a lot more comfortable. But we'll see. We took the bickies home. I didn't think we were a chance last time I went over there, and look what happened. So
we've beaten them over there the last 2 times, so against the odds both times. So
and then I didn't realise this. So the time before that, we lost by a goal, and I can't now remember that game. I'm Super Mikado, I'm sure you do. What were the circumstances there? We lost by a goal.
I'm thinking, was that the one? I'm gonna pull it up. But was that the one where we just smashed them in the last quarter? Because I don't think we played there all the season before, and I think there was a West Coast game where the last quarter we just smashed away at them and just couldn't get the goals we needed to get ahead.
Yeah, I seem to think. I can't remember. I saw the score
from my memory.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's why when I saw, because I was thinking there was one of the things I read.
So it was round 18, 2016.
Yes.
Lost by a goal.
Yeah.
We were up. We led the first 3 quarters very narrowly.
Yes, now I'm remembering. Yep.
And then got beaten.
Yeah.
In the last quarter when we did not kick a goal. We kicked 2 points.
Oh, it's typical.
And there was a very, very, very BS deliberate out on the full. I remember in the last quarter that we got rorted on in classic Perth fashion.
Yeah, Noise of Affirmation.
Correct. Ironically, one of the umpires in that game was also one of the umpires when we won a few weeks ago.
Okay.
So could go either way on that one. We won't name him, given that I've just called the decision shambolic and disgraceful. But let's hope that he goes for the tiebreaker this time. We actually won the free kicks. Oh no, sorry, that's the hit out. So I'm an idiot. So pardon me. We only lost the free kicks by 3 that day.
Okay. Well,
apparently we had 30 more inside 50s according to D Zephyr.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, 66 to 37 inside 50s.
That was another thing the West Coast Nuffies around me were complaining about. The last game we played them, they had brought in, I think, different umpires. So I think they might have ditched the normal West Coast umpires that they have, and they weren't happy about that. And obviously there's a reason they're not happy about it, because they're not getting an armchair ride.
I'm hoping not to have to interact with any of these people, given the fact that I'm sitting in the middle of all the Melbourne cheer squad, and hopefully not like sitting in the back row where there'll be some goose standing behind me or something like that, because I don't think I could restrain myself, and it's not going to be a Cardinia Park style scenario where I can just wander off somewhere else if I think I'm, low blow personal sledging someone too much.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to exercise an amazing level of restraint at this game not to abuse somebody.
B-Man, when are you flying over there?
Well, you might have to have intervention, a Super Mikado intervention.
Yeah,
sort of
like
a flock of demons
Hannibal
getting
Lecter,
around him. And
Hannibal Lecter in the thing with the mask on.
Putting a human shield around Super Mikado.
Yeah, I think so.
That'd be good. Army. Like the Roman legions where they used to stand around with the shield in like a formation. And this time it'd just be one dickhead in a Phil Reid jumper. Actually, that's a good one. I should do the Phil Reid one for the irony of him being an Eagles player.
That's right. Super Mikado, are you? So you're sitting with? Did you get your tickets through the cheer squad, or you just happened to get seats in there?
No, okay. I got it through them.
So
I don't know. I've got to go pick it up. I've got to go actually pick up the ticket tomorrow. So then I'll know exactly what part of Section 105 I'm sitting in.
Are you going to be
happy to be there?
Are you going to be holding up a Max Gorn head?
I'd love to hold up a placard. I'd love to hold up the Sizzle McDonald placard, actually, given that at Demon Blog we were the first people to champion him when he was the 2013 Demon Bracket winner. The first people to really put Tom into the stratosphere.
And
so
he responded to you, didn't he, on Twitter?
Oh, he was on fire that year. That's why he got up, because he was really getting into it and sizzling up the competition. So people were right into it. I think in the last couple of years, the players might have been told to, not respond.
I don't think
they used to.
You don't really see the players responding to anything these days.
No, I'm not sure the reply function is being viewed too much. Although at the moment, it's probably a good time if you're going to look at your replies at any time as a player, as a Melbourne player. The last 2 weeks would be it.
Yes, it would be.
As opposed to 5 years ago when, the people were just unfairly, I think, hammering players whenever they went near Twitter, and then players would bite back, and you get players who'd search for their own name and then start fighting with people. It was the classic intersection of people just discovering what social media was and being an absolutely terrible football club. Whereas now everyone's wise to how social media works, and we're an improved, possibly even good football club. So probably now a good time to check your mentions if you're a Melbourne player.
Well, there you go. Big man, anything else? Floor is yours.
No, just the final comment. So I get in 9:15, leave Melbourne at 7:15. I'm not an early person, so that's a bit disastrous for me. But the game itself, I think, same as last week, the critical thing will be our defensive pressure of our running. And I reckon there's a lot of talk about the Kennedy and Darling being our threat, and I really worry about their small forwards.
Yeah.
I think that's where their scoring is going to come from, because I suspect that if we get our pressure right, our running right, our gut running across to cover that kick from 60, 70 metres into the forward line, they won't get the sort of the silver service delivery that they're used to. And if we can disrupt that a bit, we'll keep them out of it. But it's the Lacroix and Ryan and I forget the other fellow's name that worry me.
Rioli.
Rioli, yeah. So I think, we've got Neville, we've got those smaller players. It's really about that spread, and I think it's the other thing that suits us. It's going to be perfect conditions. I think we're a side that plays well in good conditions, because our game plan so much depends on those short, quick handballs, the quick hands, like that goal from Frost up the middle, those 2-3 quick handballs, and they're just so hard to do in the wet. So I think it suits us perfectly, that ground. It's also a bit narrow, as discussed in the lead up to the last time. It's 30 metres narrower than the G, which suits our press. So I think I'm really looking forward to it. And for me, I love the fact that we're going to be 2,600 members and surrounded by 58,000 booers. They won't know what hit them.
Nah.
I agree. Imagine just like, we won there a few weeks ago, but there was always next week. They still were in the top 4. Just imagine the glory if we knock them out. Season over. A, we're going to the grand final. B, they've just lost what they will all think they were absolutely entitled to win. That will be, it could not be anything but the greatest game I've ever been to, no matter what happens if we win, because it will be 57,000 people booing their guts out because they've unexpectedly lost.
Yeah.
And it will be absolutely magnificent.
Well,
and that is my dream. I can't even put my head forward to think what would happen the next week. All I want now is that moment of silencing that stadium full of screaming hillbillies.
Well, Super Mikado, if you're in the cheer squad and that happens, speaking of social media, you'll get plenty of social media time. That cheer squad has got more vision on television and in social media than, a television show. The fella who was crocodile clapping, who was on Demonland this week, he was talking about his crocodile clapping.
I'm hoping to do something outrageous that gets me on TV to make this Burke and Will style road trip extra worthwhile.
Burke and Will. I hope it doesn't end the same way.
Well, not for us at least, anyway. So good luck, fellas, and definitely we should catch up in Perth, and let's hope that I have to call in next week.
Yes, definitely do. I'll be third row of the same bay you are. I'll be wearing a blue polo with some red piping. So, but I'm sure
I'll be wearing a Melbourne jumper. You'll hear me.
Yeah,
you'll hear me.
No
Go
problem.
Redlegs is my call.
All right, I'll listen out for you. All
No
right.
worries.
Thanks, Bid Man.
Good on you, fellas.
Good luck, and we'll
Go Red
maybe
Legs.
we'll catch up. Go Redlegs.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
All right, that was Demonland poster Bin Man. Hopefully we get to catch up and maybe have a beer after the game. Be nice.
What I wouldn't mind doing, and I've got to work out a way to do this without ruining my what will be very vital mobile phone battery, is just audio record the entire game.
Your battery will be dead.
Just so we've got that, the record, because I actually did this. I was doing a radio segment for a friend, and who I was at the Geelong game with, and we recorded the last 5 or 6 minutes, and listening back to the roars and all that, I kind of want the reverse. I want the audio of the West Coast people going absolutely troppo.
Well,
so I've got to work out a way I can do the whole day. I want the whole day. I want the first bounce. I want to the final siren. I want that audio of everything that happens around me.
Well, if you're going to do that, I would take one of those Mophis or whatever they're called, those portable iPhone batteries or whatever phone you use.
Yeah, bring a stunt phone and just use that for that.
Yeah.
Just put it on record and let the battery drain out the whole way.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping they've left halfway through the last quarter and we can just enjoy it.
Yep.
Who loved the chant? They were waiting for Nathan Jones to finish up his interview. The players were waiting to go up the race with him, and just the chants of Melbourne. That was fantastic. You didn't like that? Okay, I loved it.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting for Super Mikado. No, look, it was great. They pointed out on TV last night that it wasn't as loud as the Collingwood one, and that it might be a bit more refined than the Collingwood chant. But everyone apart from Chris Judd has been celebrating the fact that supporters are celebrating. I know on 360 tonight, Robbo made it his Wednesday hero or whatever it was, Tuesday matinee thing. So everyone's revelling in the fact that we, as a supporter base, have come alive. So in that sense, it's very much like 87 again, I suppose.
Well, I'll bring it up now.
Hopefully not in all ways.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully it ends a bit more fairy tale style. The supporter stereotype, what do you think of that? Has it been done to death? I personally have never been to the snow. I don't go skiing. I don't know any Melbourne supporters really like that fit that stereotypical one. Is there the stereotypical one? We had the cheese board last year.
When the camera pans across the members, there's always
the MCC.
Heaps of people that just look like they're too formally dressed for the footy. So then there's a whole bunch of assumptions that go with that, and some of them are true. But is that? But I don't know why people care about it. As my brother once pointed out, we're on a train home from the footy one day, and the train got to South Yarra Station, and somebody said, "Oh, the Melbourne supporters get off here," and the bloke was missing a couple of teeth. I think he was a Richmond supporter, and my brother said to him, "The stereotypes are a lot kinder to me than they are you, mate."
Yeah.
But it went straight over his head.
Yeah. That and he's got it completely wrong because it's 2 stops down in Toorak. So
there's that too. But what's wrong with being sort of wealthy and going to the snow and driving fancy vehicles around
and have teeth?
I kind of feel left out that I'm not loaded, but at the same time, I'd rather be assumed to be loaded than to take some of the other stereotypes. Now, tell me, are Hawthorn fans supposed to be like a new money version of Melbourne fans? Because I've heard before that they're supposed to be, posh and all that. Gee whiz, not the few that were sitting around us. The very few that were sitting around us. That was certainly not the Scotch College faction of the Hawthorn cheer squad.
But then you also hear about Freo supporters call West Coast supporters like Chardonnay swilling. So are they the Perth version of a Melbourne supporter? So, yeah.
Well,
anyway,
what I get from the people who live in Perth who are Melbourne fans is that West Coast fans are just theatre goers. Like they're just there. They kind of go for the pantomime of booing and all that. But then when it comes right down to it, they might be fans and they might be relatively passionate, but they just don't have the where it gets us in the guts. It's just not there. Whereas with every Victorian team, at least, if not, your Adelaides and Ports, etc., there's that core where it really gets you in your gut, whereas these people are just theatre goers. So I might accuse them of that if needs be on Saturday.
Before we get into changes or just looking general look at the game ahead, Casey game, did any of you boys get to watch that? I sort of watched last half.
Yeah, same. I watched the
I
last
didn't.
half. There was a couple of ripper sliding rules in that didn't get paid.
Is that because of the weather?
Yeah, but in comparison to the night before, they were literally sliding through and decking people's legs, and every day of the week play on.
So I watched a bit of that replay, and I couldn't believe that the cameraman didn't get out a wipe to wipe the
I
lens.
noticed that too. Yeah.
I couldn't watch some of it, so it was.
Or maybe if you're the director, just don't throw to that camera for a few seconds while the guy cleans it.
Because what happened was, it looked that whenever they were on that camera, it looked like it was, not gale force. It just looked like they were in a storm, and then they'd go to the other camera, and it was like it didn't look as wet. Obviously, it had been raining during the game, but they just needed to wipe down that lens because it's.
Well, you got to feel for the VFL broadcasters, especially the cameramen, because they've had some absolute shockers this year. The VFL, including that game at Williamstown where they had to move to the ground level and film from there because it was actually too dangerous for them to be up. Poor old Jason Bennett, just marooned doing all these B-level games when he's 10 times the caller that Brian Taylor is, or Dwayne Russell is, and he's out there in a tent at North Port Oval with it hammering down, raining. Did you hear BT's call of the Melksham goal?
Yep.
Gee, God, boy, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the dumbest thing of all time, but for the last couple of days, every time I think about that goal, I just want to yell out, gee, God, boy, wow.
Well,
So
at least there's some variety
catchy.
in that rather than, what about that? What about that? What about that? What about that? Or no,
Well,
you believe it? Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Yes. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Cannot believe it.
Cannot believe it. Yeah, sorry.
I love
Which I'm more into than your Dwayne. It had more of an air of disbelief, both of them, than Dwayne would have been like, that's crazy good and it's out of here when the ball lands. Like the Charlie Spargo one, he would have said, that's out of here when the ball landed 2 centimetres over the goal line. So for that, I'd probably, on the strength of that game, take BT over Dwayne, but I would certainly take Jason Bennett over both of them under any circumstances under the sun.
And I'd take BT over Luke Darcy any day of the week. That guy has the smallest vocabulary of anyone commentating footy.
I despise Luke Darcy's commentary, but I will always remember Tom McDonald, Eugenius. That will always have a place in my heart that will help. And maybe, gee, God, boy, wow, will have a similar place in my heart one day. Did you see the roaming Brian?
Yes. I was going to bring that up. I love Clary's. Clary's.
Well, he kind of rolled Clary because at first he was trying to be all cool and playing it down, and then when BT's like, he asked, "Oh, you used to be a Brisbane fan," and so, "Oh, how did you know that?" And he was loving it. So I was like, you got stitched up there by, you got roped into paying attention to that. I like Craig Jennings, where he came around the corner and he's like, "Oh, he's Craig Jennings. He's looking happy," and Craig just gave him the death stare, which, to be fair, he gives to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen him emote at all in any shot that's ever happened, including, as you might remember, the Adelaide game when Goodwin gave him a celebratory ruffle around the head and he looked like he was
slapped him.
Yeah, he looked like he was gravely offended rather than joining in the celebration. So, and he also loves a search of his own name on Twitter. So if you want to get Craig's attention, just drop his name on Twitter. Obviously, all for good reasons at the moment, but he's becoming quite an online cult figure for his stone cold demeanour.
All right. This whole roaming Brian, did he go into the toilets at one stage, or was that the ice bathroom or something?
He went into the ice
He
bath,
was in the
and
massage.
Gibbo was in there, and with Crossy.
I thought Crossy didn't have any pants on at first, but then he was certainly standing back and trying to stay very level to the water. But maybe that was just the hope that TV was just going to go wildly off chops and something ridiculous was going to happen.
I thought it was very interesting that they went to the girl who weighs everyone. I wasn't aware that they did that. I having a think about it, I sort of can understand why they do it. They want to sort of keep track of things, and but it's interesting that the interesting.
What did he ask her? What did he ask her? He said,
"Are you the masseuse, or do they come to?" Is that what he asked? He got it wrong, whatever he said to her.
Yeah, and then she was saying, I think he wanted to try and get some proprietary information from her.
He asked if she was something else, and she's like, no.
I'm taking weight.
She's like, you're kidding, aren't you?
Yeah.
I actually found it quite amusing.
He started to ask who lost the most weight. And she said, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, he's not going to give that information.
Yeah, he's not going to
give that out.
It's worth pointing out, Caro pointed out on the Footy Classified last night, and Robbo mentioned it again tonight, 2 weeks in a row, the club's had an open media session where every single player has been available, and we've seen a heap of stories come out of that. That's where the Vanders story, which we talked about last week, came from. And every day in the paper there's been yarns. So big pat on the back to the club for that, because it's great for the media and it's great for the supporters in turn.
Yeah.
You get access and you get information that you wouldn't otherwise get, such as that Vandenberg story, which was just so incredible. So well done.
Yeah, and I think they've been very good on social media. They're posting a lot of content, which is great. Years and years ago, and part of the reason why Demonland exists is because there was nothing online and there was no content from the club. And obviously, in this day and age, there's going to be more. But their whole last couple of weeks in finals has been fantastic, and a lot of content. They're engaging with people. I asked a question, they answer. It's been really, really good. So
I guess they're just having fun for once.
Yeah.
Which even 6 weeks ago, you would have been the Melbourne social media person, and you would have been opening the feed, and it would have been people complaining about one thing or the other. Whereas now it's just absolute, carnival atmosphere. Yeah. The only time they were under the pump was that first day the finals tickets went down. I thought they did a brilliant job of explaining to people that it wasn't their fault without just throwing the white flag up. They were very good about the instructions and what to do and everything. So good on them, because I'm sure it's not the same people. I know there are certainly people who are there in the darkest days of the social media team who have moved on to bigger and better things now. But they certainly deserved to have the time to do some cool stuff, and to know people are really looking at them in a positive light instead of just waiting for a club post to come up so they can slaughter it. I remember end of 2013, I reckon it was, they put the team changes up and they attached the wrong photo. And they attached a photo of an IKEA TV unit.
How does that happen?
And it is to my eternal disappointment that maybe it's in my Twitter feed somewhere. Maybe I put it on Twitter at the time. But that I don't have a screenshot of it, because it was like, our team's in for round 23. Check it out here, and here's the link. And then it was just, the Kirschplatten or something TV unit. So I guess of the things you could, accidentally attach as a photo, it wasn't the worst thing.
Yeah.
But it was just, at that point of, it was either 2012 or 2013 when we were in the rock bottom stages. It was kind of like, that pretty much says it all about the way we're going at the moment. It's like when they had Member Appreciation Week and a guy won a prize and he wasn't there. And then instead of just redrawing it, they're like, we'll just give him a call. And it's like, well, hold on. Why don't you redraw the prize for those of us who are here watching us lose to Adelaide by 80 points?
Exactly.
Anyway, my history with Member Appreciation Days is a bit better in the last 2 years than it was in the years before that. There was the one where I came randomly out of the hat and got to go on the ground and be given a jumper by Luke Tapscott. That was the Adelaide one as well, actually. Everyone who'd been to every game for the year went in the ballot, and I was one of the ones randomly picked out to go on ground before the game, and each of us, 22 of us, got a player gave us a jumper and said thanks for coming, and mine was Luke Tapscott, so I've still got that in the collection here. And then they merrily turned around and went out and lost to Adelaide by about 70.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
I felt appreciated, at least at the start, before the game, not as much once the game finished.
Well, someone tried to call us a moment ago. If you do want to,
I hope it was Craig Jennings.
No, yeah, it was. No. If you do want to call us back, give us a call back. I think they rang once and hung up, but could have been a telemarketer, which also could have been fun. So if you are a telemarketer, call us back. So the Casey game, can you see anyone from that might be knocking on the door? Vince made his return, played an all right game. You think? I don't think this week, but can you see him coming back in, or you know? No, we can't have Vince and Lewis.
Not without someone forcibly.
It's going to be hard to make changes to a winning side.
Yeah.
I think one of the ones that's been mooted is a potential Joel Smith in, Tyson out, and Fritsch comes up to. Plays further up the field, but it'd be a risky move, wouldn't it, to tinker with a winning combination?
I'm still sus on Tyson, and that's probably the best theory of them all, the one you've just outlined there. But I don't know. Yeah, I almost do think you just got to let it roll now. If everyone's fit, just let the same team roll, and whatever happens, and let's not look back in a week's time if it all goes wrong and say, oh, we should have done that and we should have done this. Let's just go with the same team, and then, hopefully we're going with the same team again a week later.
That's good. We do have a caller on the line. Good evening, you're on the air.
Oh, hi guys, how you going? I'm Jabroni.
Sorry, what was your name?
It's Jabroni, or Adrian's my name, but known as Jabroni on the forum. I'm from Adelaide.
Oh, okay. But a Demon supporter.
Demon supporter, obviously, for a long time, and I listen to your podcast most weeks and do enjoy it. So,
thank you.
I just wanted to ask one question, if that was okay.
Of course.
Just with the West Coast game this week, I'm a bit worried about the whole Kennedy-Darling match situation, and I think there's a stat that they're 11-0 when they play this year, and obviously Frosty and Oscar have done great jobs this year, but do we need extra support back there this week to combat that combination, or do we need to have a different setup to deal with that? I know they've done well. I think Frosty struggled a bit Friday night with a couple of situations, and Oscar's been solid, but do we need more support, or do we need to maybe use Hibbo as an extra a third-man situation as well? I wasn't sure what you guys thought about that.
Well, I'd love to have Lever, but obviously that's not an option.
Me too.
Boys, you want to tackle that one? I think the only other option would be Joel Smith, or unless you do play Hibbert in that. But
then I guess someone has to pop out for him as well. I guess that's the issue as well.
Boys?
I think that if anything, that's the best theory. And I do see 100% where you're coming from. Just sticking that one more athletic defender in the mix down there could help. But I guess unlike Kevin Sheedy dropping people for a grand final, I just haven't got the fortitude to go for the big change at this point, rightly or wrongly. So I wouldn't start a picket line if that did come out as the change. But personally, I would just roll with what we've got now.
What we've got and just hope for the best. And I remember last time, I think the two Indigenous boys, Rioli and the other guy, I forget his name, but they did quite well as well. So there's obviously a few issues to be aware of. But I'm sort of quietly confident about this week. My wife and I came to the game last Friday and we loved it over there. Always loved going to the G and watching the boys play. And obviously it was a great result. So I think as the previous caller, Bin Man said, it's probably a 50-50 game. And we might need a bit of lady luck on our side with a few things as well. But fingers crossed, the boys can get the job done, obviously.
Yeah, I'd love that. Are you making another trip? It's only halfway.
Unfortunately, no. I've got my sister. I've got a family birthday this weekend, which I unfortunately committed to. So otherwise, we've probably got the car and just driven over there probably today or tomorrow for the game. But unfortunately, can't make this one. But hopefully the boys get through, and we'll try and get over next week for the big one. But obviously, first things first. We're trying to beat the Eagles, but we'd love to go. But wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Hope you have a good time and cheer out for us. And we'll definitely, hopefully, you'll come home with smiles on your faces.
Yeah, well, hopefully. Otherwise, next week's going to be a very somber podcast.
I'm still on cloud 9. I just want to keep being on this cloud and just enjoy the ride. And to see so many Melbourne supporters at the game last week, it really was just amazing to see. And even though it was a Hawthorn home game, so to speak, just to see so much red and blue cheering, it was just really pleasing to see, and considering what we've been through in previous years as well. But no, I love the show, and keep up the good work as well.
Thank you, appreciate that. Thanks.
No worries. Good night.
Cheers. You too. I hope we can do something next year. I hope we can turn this support that we've had, this overwhelming support we've had, into some new memberships next year.
No doubt.
I think the club's got to be
definitely happen.
Club's got to be really creative in trying to convert those that have come into members for next year. And I know, look, a premiership's the one thing that can really boost that, but the success, even if we bow out next week, it'd be great if they can somehow sort of turn that membership, that support into membership next year, because there's got to be. And I hope, we've seen on Demonland this week a lot of people coming on, joining Demonland, looking for barcodes. Well, there's one surefire way to get a barcode, and that's forking out some dollars. And look, people, not everyone can afford it, but if you can, that's how you get a barcode, and hopefully we can have some success. Now, our caller mentioned that that wasn't our home game, and there's a couple of things I took down. I noticed about that. Their announcer was terrible. I don't know if I'm just biased
He just screamed.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm
the most irritating voice, and it was at whine level, and it was just so persistent. He didn't shut up.
No.
I don't like that whole thing anyway, but gee, he made Robbo look like a professional sort of compere.
I think you have to have that, though.
It was just so irritating, that voice.
I think you have to have something, so you need that. You can't just not have a compere. But he was also, I didn't like the way he talked about Melbourne and Melbourne supporters. I don't know, there was just something about him. But
surely you can come up with something better than, let's look at the people who are walking into the stadium.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
Fair dinkum.
And how was it late, Cam, when people are inside the stadium and the game still hasn't started yet?
That was that time where it was that late, Cam.
What about when they had the people in the tubes rolling along, and they had Campbell Brown as one of the celebrity contestants, and they asked him, how are the Hawks going to go? And he goes, I think they'll be serviceable.
Yes.
It was like he had a moment in his head where he had a conflict between being an ex-Hawthorn player and being a broadcaster,
being honest,
and he just went halfway down the middle because he obviously thought they were going to lose.
Yeah,
he goes, I reckon they'll be serviceable. It was just crap, and we had it the week before where it was our advantage, but I think that they really should just treat all these games as neutral, and they can still do all that crap. They can still have people kicking a 50-metre drop punt into a bucket like they did at the Geelong game. But
why not
take the flood stuff out of it? And, fireworks going off.
Oh, well, I'm going to talk about that too.
It was just so chintzy. It was just it was creepy. I hate that stuff where they treat the game like a bloody minor league baseball game. I think our entertainment, except for the one horrific week where we brought in Match the Emoji before it was dropped. Our entertainment is, it's not for me, but it's at an acceptable level where it's not ridiculous to people who aren't there for chintzy entertainment. It just does its job, gets the kids happy, gets people dancing every once in a while, and moves on. Whereas this was just like, hey, look at us. We're a massive club. We've got fireworks and we've got, Campbell Brown saying we're serviceable and the like. It was just try hard, basically, to use the classic 90s term.
The fireworks. I'll go back. Why not choose I know the whole home game thing, but why not just have compare have Robbo and this guy and do it together? Because you got two teams that are in the final. This whole home game thing, I don't know about. Anyway.
I think it's ridiculous. And obviously this week we'll be getting the full Eagles pre-match extravaganza. What have we got to look forward to there?
You have got to look forward to a live eagle that gets released from the top of the scoreboard does a circle of the ground. So you're on the field, you're on the lower level, so you're not going to have it almost take out your head. But it goes around sort of the front couple of rows of the top level of the stand and does a circle, almost clipping people's heads as it goes along, and then gets to the other scoreboard and then turns into the middle of the field and lands on a thing it just lands on this plinth in the middle of the ground. So that's what you got to look forward to.
The people who have seen this 11 times this year already will still gasp in wonderment that it's like the most amazing thing they've ever seen. And, oh, my God, it might hit someone as it flies past.
Yeah. And there's a, and you
Never
just...
hit anyone in the past.
I'm just waiting for, like, I don't know if you're familiar with The Simpsons when they let go of an eagle and it just flies off. I'm waiting for that. Or attacks some kid in the stand. And
I hope it goes rogue.
Hogan's Heroes moment.
Just drops a big, eagle-style turd on someone in the middle of the ground or something. That'd be great.
So you got that. They also, instead of a banner, they come out of an inflatable eagle's mouth or something like that. And the guy who I was sitting next to hated it because Nick Nat always hits his head on it as he goes through.
Yeah, because the beak is very droopy over the front of it.
So it's going to take someone's eye out.
So is that
and then
there's
just like a guard of honour of people waving flags, but it's not kids. It's like adults. It's almost like, did you see last week where they had the Hawthorn people waving the flags around the ground?
Yep.
For about an hour.
The guy's arm near me was
At
so
one
tight.
point, the announcer goes, "Give them a hand. It's a big night for them too." And it's like, do you people not follow a team that's won 4 premierships? Like, surely people aren't weeping in joy when they get the phone call to come and gingerly wave a flag around for 45 minutes before a game. It was absolutely remarkable, the whole thing. Like, it was just a disgrace.
Yeah, if we won 4 premierships, I'd just be bringing out the premiership cups every week.
Exactly. Wave that flag around.
Yeah. What'd you say, Great Viney? If an Americanisation, yes.
No, just I'm trying to picture what the Weagles come out of, because is it one of those blow-up things, is it?
Yeah, it's sort of an inflatable thing they come out of, and they've got a whole lot of cheerleaders sort of around it, so it is very Americanised. And then once the players are out on the field, it's the cheerleaders who are the ones who have to deflate and stand on it to get all the air out of it. It's quite amusing.
Very good.
So, you got that to look forward to, and then just a lot of, local, patting on the back and stuff like that. What are we? So, fireworks. Yes. I noticed that for their last goal, which was sort of like they didn't do the fireworks.
Gone home already.
So I want to know.
Number 10, I think. It's not even like they got 10.
It was number 9. It wasn't like they had. No, they kicked 9. How many did they kick in the end?
I think there was 9 fireworks and then 1 where it didn't blow.
So you would have, 1 where it didn't. So they did 9 fireworks. The 10th one there wasn't. So you would think, did they run out of fireworks or did they give up? Had they conceded at that point and thought, well, we're not going to waste money on another firework. We'll save it for another day.
The fireworks technician was probably ready to go and you just got the phone call. The phone rang, don't bother, Keith.
Because you wouldn't...
We're off here, save money.
If you only had a certain amount, you would have bought 10, not 9. Unless they came in lots of 3.
Well, they were obviously expecting a low-scoring game if they only were going to have 9 things to go off. Like, what if they kicked 25 goals?
Because I'm sure if they kicked 25 goals and thrashed us, there would have been 25 fireworks. I'm positive.
I would have been blowing up like the apocalypse now.
Yeah.
But it didn't, so bad.
And then when they won, they would have let all the rest that they didn't use off. So
and then just kind of drag them back to the Melbourne Storm.
There should just be a blanket ban on extra curricular activities between goals. I went to the St Kilda Melbourne game at Etihad, their home game earlier in the year, and they played blaring, horrible music every time they kicked a goal, and now we've had the fireworks. You should not be able to do any of that stuff between goals. It's just ridiculous.
What about Gold Coast's jaunty trumpet salute whenever they kick a goal, which I know is a rare occasion, so you might not be front of mind, but they play the little bit from their theme song every time there's a goal. And Geelong, I noticed Geelong got rid of, when we beat them there a few years ago, they had a noise after every goal that was like it was supposed to be a cat but it was kind of just really crap roar. But it was kind of like a crap panther or something rather than a cat. And someone who may have, I don't know how they knew this, but they suggested that it was exactly the same soundbite that's in a very popular poker machine. Yeah. Which caused me to question and ask them if they were all right and whether they needed any help, because why you would know that, I'm not sure.
So back to no changes expected.
Fireworks out.
And no fireworks, no change. I'm just trying to think if they had anything extra there. I don't think so. But
banners out.
They had one of those, they did, I think it was at halftime maybe, they had one of those kicking for goal competitions, and they had a kid, kicking, and he was meant to kick it from 15, and we'll bring you into 5 metres out, so you can't miss, type of thing. Yep. So no changes. We're not expecting any unless there's injuries. Any? Who do you think's going to match up on the two big forwards? Who's going to take who? Super Mikado?
I'd say Frost on Kennedy.
Yep. Frost on Kennedy, yep.
And why not? Let's send Oscar to Darling again to give him a memory of the time he was knocked out.
Yeah, we've got to remember that Darling didn't but neither of them played the last time we played them. Yeah. So Darling was out quite early.
Didn't play either.
And that's right. So Jack Viney's worth 10.
That's something coming the other way. So let's just stop the damn ball from getting to them in the first place.
Yeah. All right. So any other? Well, Harms will probably take Yo.
Or Shuey. Yep.
Or Shuey. Any other matchups we need to that we need to think about?
Gaff will probably run on and punch Brayshaw in the head, just for the sake of it. Because apparently you can have 19 men on the field in the
what did you think? What did you think of that whole?
Well, it happened twice. That's the most ridiculous thing. It happened in the NEFL as well.
Yeah.
Like where does this come from? There hasn't been a head count since about 1999, and then there was 2 in a week.
Was it?
I think once you're taking 4 points off a team for the next season, it's it's a fair indication that they did something bad enough in the game itself that you probably should have taken action there.
Yeah.
Well, just all you need to do to judge your reaction is put Melbourne in that situation, and imagine we lost a preliminary final. The teams had player on the ground for under 5 minutes, but they've scored 1 goal, 2 in that time. 8 points. The margin was 5 points. Staggeringly, absolutely staggeringly, the SANFL, instead of dealing with it themselves and getting a proper ruling here, palmed it off to an independent one-man tribunal. He said that the appropriate outcome should have been to replay the game, but it wasn't in his power to call for that, so he couldn't do it. So the result stands, and Woodville, West Torrens miss, North Adelaide go through, and they cheated. It is absolutely staggering. I'm surprised that Woodville, West Torrens haven't taken out an injunction. Yep. I'm surprised, as someone else said, I think Daisy Cutter in the thread today, that North Adelaide don't just concede the game, which would be the sportsman thing to do, because the result is compromised. So it's absolute farce what's going on over there.
So there's different rules for AFL and what happens in the SANFL, but is the AFL where you lose your entire score if it gets caught at the time? I believe.
It has the opposing captain has to call for a head count for that to happen.
Yeah,
and I think it's.
But you also have to have got past the interchange infringement to get to that point, because if you have the interchange infringement and they pick it up there, that you get the free kick paid against you, and still the 50 from wherever the ball was as well. So I don't see under those circumstances, unless something really bizarre happened, I don't see you could accidentally have too many people on the ground.
The problem with deducting the part of the score which was scored when the 19th player was on is that at the time you don't know the exact time that the player's been on for. When did he come on and when did he come off?
Well, I think that's all in
an automatic video review of things. You can't sort it out until later.
So did they actually have a head count?
Yeah,
I'm taking it no, because wouldn't that have?
Yeah.
because there's ripping footage I saw it of a 1975 sample game that I saw this week, ironically before this even happened, where they called a head count and players were just like trying to run off the ground, and the umpire was trying to like round them up like he was rounding up cattle to make sure that they didn't run off the ground.
No one sneaked.
Because they only had one too many, and about 6 of them were just trying to bolt off the ground and down the race, so that they got away with it. Like, it was magnificent viewing. But now, obviously, now they just pull the footage out and go bang, 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 bang. There's your 19th. But the question is, if you called a head count, can you go to the video umpire on the head count and pull the field up and pick everyone out? Otherwise, you do end up in the same situation where they can't decide it on the day, and then you end up with the league squibbing their decision afterwards.
I think the mistake that the Eagles made was that they alerted officials on the bench to it, when what they needed to do was obviously get a message out to the captain to say call for it.
Yeah.
I think they have gone an administrative route rather than the technical rule book route, and it's absolutely cost them. It's staggering for that to happen in this day and age.
Yeah. I think they should have at least had that 1 goal 2 taken off them, and then that's the result. Yeah, and then the results. All right, but that's that. Let's hope we're never involved on the wrong end of one of those things, because that would be frustrating to lose a game like that, or to have a game lost because of that. Grand final ballot. They're forcing us to do it this week. How does that, Great Viney, how does that sit with your superstitions?
No, I'm fine with that. That doesn't bother me, and I'd rather let's get all the get all the administrative chinks out of the system before the panic of grand final week. So I'm fine. So
you've got a premium membership, the same as me. So as long as we go into this ballot tomorrow, we can be all right. We're not guaranteed where we're going to sit, basically. Super Mikado, what's your situation?
Yeah, I'm the priority one as well. It's just it's. I know it's 4 hours tomorrow, but I've got great tension about something happening and stuffing up and missing out on that 4 hours. It reminds me, you were saying The Simpsons earlier, when Bart Simpson's running for class president,
and he forgets to vote.
And he forgets to vote. It's like I'll be sitting there all day. Go, I got my guaranteed grand final ticket, and it'll be like, 12:05. Oh shit.
Yeah. 1 for Martin, 2 for Martin.
Yeah, correct. I demand a recount. I always liked in that one how they had, he had the newspaper that says Prince defeats Simpson. I always wanted to beat West Coast when we had Harry O, so that we could bring out Prince defeats Simpson, and it never happened. So he might come back this week, although I guess his anti-Nathan Buckley crusade is probably at its lowest ebb at the moment. So we might not hear from Heretier this week about anything.
So I feel for, there's going to be members that go into this ballot, and look, obviously we've got to win this week, but if we do, and there's going to be members that put their name in and don't get a ticket.
But what I find strange is that, again, for every week of the finals, my daughter's $60 ceremonial kids membership has had an email, because it's got one of my email addresses as her email address, saying, here's your barcode so you can get 2 finals tickets. And now this week, she's got one to say you can go in the level 3 ballot. So it's like, why do you let that even into the ballot? Because I could put that in. I'm not going to. Because one, I don't want to somehow suddenly lose $800 off my credit card and then have to find someone to flog the ticket to later at cost price, if you're listening, police. But also because it's just immoral, the idea that I could take that ticket and it would go at the absolute cost price to a Melbourne fan who deserved it. But I can see other people pulling a dodgy if her name just happened to come out of the hat if I put it in the ballot. But it's just bizarre to me that you've got this whole final series, you've got 3-game members who their priority is higher than normal members. And a couple of Collingwood fans I know, actually 2 separate groups of Collingwood fans I know, one work, one real life, who pay enormous money for their memberships and couldn't get tickets.
As
because
in
all
for
your
this week?
3-game members and Anzac Day members and stuff like that have also gone into the ballot, or also been able to buy tickets for the this week's game, and they haven't been able to do it. It's almost like they just want to stack the biggest crowd possible, and they don't care who the tickets actually go to, as long as somebody's buying them and they get their 90,000+ crowd, rather than doing what they're doing for the grand final. And even then, I think it's dodgy that a kid's membership even gets a start in the ballot. But to tier it off and make sure that the premium members get tickets before then, your 22-game members, then your 11-game members, and so on and so forth, so that your 3-game members aren't put at this stage of the season up on the same level as real supporters. No offence to 3-game members, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I do. Do pet memberships get anything?
Probably. Everyone else does.
My dog's going to the footy.
When the 4-year-old kid membership gets a start, that it's just staggering. I could not believe that on the weekend, even for the West Coast game. I was entitled to buy one ticket on her membership number. So it's bizarre. They definitely need to look at it next year, because this Collingwood-Richmond game, there's so many. You've got to expect that if you're a fan of these clubs, you're going to be in a much more competitive race to get the tickets. But I'd be bleeding if I knew that I paid $800, $900 for a membership and I couldn't get one, versus someone who'd had a 3-game membership. And I must say, I'd like to apologise to Collingwood for being sour about them not keeping the prelim in Melbourne, because I actually decided midweek that I'd rather spend over $1,000 and not have the stress of dealing with Ticketek and trying to get into a game of that kind of interest than joining in that Royal Rumble yesterday, where I think the tickets went out in an hour and a half.
So are you saying you think that like premium type membership should get, in just a normal final, should get sort of a like they're doing for the grand final, or priority?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And look, there's only so many brackets you can have, so you might have to tier. Might have to have a few tiers, but it just seems to me bizarre. And also it helps stagger it, which, as we know, Ticketek is not a big fan of staggering the games and actually helping their computer system not explode. So that would help stretch it out a bit further. But I just think it's bizarre that a kid's membership is offering even a spot in the grand final ballot. I think that's staggering.
Are we competing with any other team? Oh, obviously, Richmond and West Coast did their grand final ballots, I think, last week. So when are Collingwood doing it? I hope we're not.
It'll be a different
day.
Presumably
even this one's bracketed.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Did you see there was and I don't know if this was a joke but they're on eBay today, there was a ticket to the Richmond Collingwood game listed for $23,000.
Yeah, I did see that.
So
I saw two, for $46,000. So it might have been part of the same gag.
Oh, maybe it's so it is a gag, or we don't know, because I'm not paying.
Yes,
there were certainly ones on there for $1,000. Real life ones.
$1,000 I can see, but 23,000. That's that's going a bit overboard.
Well, and correct. So the grand final, you're legally not allowed to scalp the ticket, but I'm not sure if that actually counts for the other finals as well. I don't think it does. I reckon it might just be the grand final. So they probably need to look at that as well.
Interesting. All right. That's the ballot out of the way. Only other thing,
just for God's sake, don't forget. Can you send me a tweet or something at 11 a.m. or something to
make
say,
sure
have you entered your ballot today?
No, I'm not. I don't know what I'm going to have to write things on my arm, memento style. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie. And I don't. I've set 2 alarms. If I miss this, because it's not just me, I've got my whole family's worth of tickets on the line here, and I'll cop it.
It doesn't really matter if you do it any time between 8 and 12. But if I'm upright and near an internet-connected device at 8, I'm doing it, because you never know what might happen after that.
I'm doing it at 8. It's not. There's no other time. I'm not waiting till 11:59 to do it.
And the good news is you get to give Ticketek $5.
Oh yes, that too. I'm still. administrative fee? It's all online. Like, come on, they've got a computer program that's going to randomly select things. It's different if there was...
How much does it cost to put a Commodore 64 on?
Yeah, it's the same thing. I have the same thing with paying a handling fee for movie tickets that I am buying online. They don't have to hire someone to take my ticket order. I'm buying a ticket and then I'm printing out the ticket on my printer using my ink and my paper, and then they charge you a $2 fee for that. It's just ridiculous. The only other thing I've got in our notes are the Demon Brownlow invites. Were you surprised by any of the names? Jones, Viney, I assume captains get an invite regardless of the season they've had. And then it's Oliver and Maxi, who you would expect. But Jake Melksham was the other name on the list. And he's had some good numbers with some of the inside 50 stuff and all that. But I would have thought maybe on T-Mac or Brayshaw had limited games, obviously we know, but I would have thought one of those two, but I guess it doesn't really matter in the end.
I'm surprised they even put it out there. Like that's just 24-hour media cycle.
Oh yeah, well that's
that's just gap filling, just to make sure that no one thinks about soccer or rugby league or anything for a few minutes. And I must say, I was roped straight in. First thing I'm like, got to see who the Melbourne ones are.
Of course.
It's to distract you from the AFLX changes that they're sweeping through as we speak.
What's that? They distract us from AFLX? Yes, I think maybe.
Where is the AFLX Brownlow, where Jake Melksham was the
yes.
greatest
Well, I was going to
player?
maybe this is why he's got the.
Yes.
This is why I got the invite. They've taken into account his.
They're going to give him an award.
AFLX form.
Well, T-Mac.
Although Tommy Mack had a good series too,
yes.
didn't
Yes, he did.
Well, T-Mac got buried by future Melbourne legend Braden Pruce in a tackle in one of those AFLX games. So they could come back together in a tearful reunion when Braden comes to be our backup ruck for some reason.
We haven't had much time to sort of talk about trades. Usually this time of year we're into the trades fully.
Yeah, we're into the delistings.
We're exactly, and that'll be in a future episode in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Did you? What do you think? Do you think he's on the radar, or you think that's just media beat up?
I see why we'd want him, but I don't see why he'd want to come to us.
Yeah, he'd want a sort of a number one. Well, not that I think he'd probably get that anywhere, but
yeah, I just don't see why. Like, if his problem is that he's stuck behind Todd Goldstein, why not either A, go somewhere completely different, or wait for like one more season until Todd Goldstein retires, rather than come to Melbourne where Max Gawn's got like 9 years left in his career. I don't understand it, but maybe with the rule changes, they've got some master plan for a double ruckman experience next year.
Perhaps.
But then again, you're already going to now try and have to fit McDonald, Hogan and Wiedemann into a forward line.
Exactly.
We can't have a resting ruckman down there as well.
No. Perhaps he lives Cranbourne way and wants to be closer to his the ground that he plays at. Because that's where I think he'd be playing for most of the year, barring injury.
Well, like I said, it's good for us. Like, we could do with a backup, but it's going to have to be a backup who knows their role, which is to sit in the twos all year, unless something happens to Max. So,
in case of emergency, break glass.
Break Bruce.
Are we out of the gaff picture? Is that dream over? Were we ever in it? Or was that media?
Well, according to Pro D, said he had some pretty good intel from a well-connected either player manager or someone in the player manager sphere that said we are out of the gaff picture. Yes.
That we are out. All right. I was hoping you would.
That it's either going to be north or stay.
Well, hopefully
I wonder
he's watching.
if the Biff kind of is he was going to go, and then he kind of feels he has to repay them, so he ends up staying with them now.
Yeah, possibly.
And it actually turns out to be a good thing for West Coast in the end, because they get him for 5 more years instead of one final series.
Yeah. All right.
Either way, just if you see him in the crowd when you're at the game on Saturday, just duck and cover.
Yes.
It'll be punchy.
All right. Well, anything else, boys? Anything you want to bring up that we haven't talked about? It's been a long one. I think we're closing in on 2 hours.
I think we've given it a good shake.
I think so too. Super Mikado, you want to give those plugs?
Yes, could be the last time because I could drop dead if I drop dead at Subiac, I'm in trouble. I could drop dead at Perth Stadium, as they'd call it on the ABC.
Yep.
So you can visit the blog at demonblog.com. We've also I've updated the index page, so you can go through this year's posts and have a preliminary final marathon if you so desire. You can get me on Twitter at Demon Blog, and you can hit up the Demon Wiki history website at demonwiki.org.
Very nice. If you are listening to this at a later date, join us on demonland.com. Join us for the excitement of the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Boys, I'm off to Perth on Friday, and so Super Mikado, and we'll try and bring home a victory. All right, go Days.
Well, we'll die trying.
Exactly.
Well, anyway.
All right, we'll be back next week. Go Days.